And there was no market here.
What was it for?
It was for components, software components, that I could sell to people who were building other larger products. And most of those customers were in the US. And I sold through online channels, and online that day, in those days, were little ads in the back of magazines, right? The second startup was something where I could hire talent. Talent was there. The digital infrastructure was better. The first one, by the way, I used to send floppy disks to the BNSNL office to transmit my files to the US. The second one, I could get a DSL connection in the office. Talent was there, but capital wasn't. So while I started the startup here, I had to go to Boston to raise my money from Bain Capital, and then start up here. Finally, we were acquired by a US company. The third startup, let me tell you this. I started it 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now. Talent was there, the capital is there, the market is India, and my mother asked me, why aren't you doing another startup, right? So really what it is, and this is emblematic of what they're really learning the mental skills of entrepreneurship and are going to build the companies of the future out of India. So I think that's a very important aspect of what we are looking for as a startup ecosystem. So before we open it up to Mr. Gandhi to give a few opening comments, but just a few ground rules. We want to keep this interactive. This is both going to be questions to Mr. Gandhi, but also, he wants to hear feedback from you all. What is it you need? What are the challenges you're facing? What are the hurdles? And what are the opportunities you'd like to exploit? And what policies would help make that a reality? And I think that's what this session is about. After all, with a government in power, you know what their policies are in general, but with the comments, after that I'm going to open it up to questions. We've solicited questions from all of the attendees, so I have a stack of them. I may not be able to go through all of them, but my request is when you ask the question, please identify yourself, keep it brisk, keep it on topic, the topic we have, and I may not be able to offer any follow-ups because we want to get as many people in as possible. So if with those ground rules, we'll have a great session, I hope, and an engaging one. So if I could have you say a few opening comments, please.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here. I've come here more as a listener. I'm not a technical expert. I've come here to listen to you, to get a sense of what you're feeling and how we can work together to make entrepreneurship easier, to help to be here. So,
there we go. So please stand up as well because I can't spot you otherwise. Neeraj, you have a question for us?
Hi, Rahul ji. I hope you're enjoying Bangalore. My question to you is, I'll read it out, please. When I signed up for today's session, many people told me that why do I associate politics with work? However, startups and non-profit organizations like ours should be interacting more with politics and government. And it should not be a bad perception. How will you
politics at work?
I have politics at home as well.
And politics at work, politics at home. So the first thing is there's politics everywhere. There's politics. I think a conversation informs us what you'd like, and from our perspective, it's going to be done.
Thank you.
Right. So, Mr. Gandhi, in this devil of an issue called the angel tax, and that a lot of startups have faced over the last 6 months. And Apramaya, who's here somewhere, he's a very established founder. He exited Taxi for Sure for he and his co-founder for a couple of $100 million, USD that is. But he's a founder who's also been investing in startups, and this has become a frustrating for him. Apramaya, please.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My name is Apramaya. I used to run Taxi for Sure. Now I run Vocal. I'm also an angel investor. Some of my companies which I invested in have been getting notices and treating me like a criminal.
Been informed about the angel tax, and I think angel tax goes
Thank you so much.
On his behalf. He says, what is the plan and how the
we came up with the idea of the GST had to be tested. GST had to be run for impose this type of GST is one tax. So even though the government likes to call this thing a GST, this is not a GST. This is 5 different layers of taxes, and it is counterproductive. So we are pretty clear. We're going to get rid of this GST. We're going to reform the GST, and we are going to work. We're going to work to give you one GST, simple GST, with as few complications as possible and the lowest tax possible. The other thing about GST is that it leaves out huge chunks of the Indian economy. And so some of those things are going to be brought into the GST. It's perfectly doable. The conceptual misunderstanding that, frankly, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister conversations. Frankly, when we were negotiating on GST, we were made to feel, and there was a discussion on what the GST would look like, and we were pretty clear that this is going to be a serious problem. And we had warned the government again and again and again, and we're going to get rid of it. We're going to You're going to have a GST, but it's
I think, being an entrepreneur is tough enough. Even when you have money, even when you have talent, all of that, it's still a hard journey. But if you're from a disadvantaged community, it's even harder. And this is the question that's come from Triptur Krishna. Where is he? Here we go. Can we get the mic to him? He's a Dalit entrepreneur, and he would like to understand your view of how the government can help him and his community.
ಜೈ ಭೀಮ್, ಜೈ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಮಾತೆ. ನಾನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ಸರಿ ಆಗ್ಬೋದಲ್ಲ? ಗೌರವಾನ್ವಿತ ಸರ್ಕಾರಗಳ ಯೋಜನೆಗಳು ಇದುವರೆಗೆ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ಪ್ರದೇಶದ ವಿದ್ಯಾವಂತ ನಿರುದ್ಯೋಗಿಗಳಿಗೆ ತಲುಪಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೊದಲ ಕಾರಣ ಒಂದು ಅಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ಸ್ ನೆಗ್ಲಿಜೆನ್ಸಿ, ಕೋಆಪರೇಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಎರಡನೇದು ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳು ಕೋಆಪರೇಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇವತ್ತು ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. ದಲಿತ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಅವರು ಆರ್ಥಿಕವಾಗಿ ನಿಜವಾಗಲೂ ಅವರು ಸಮರ್ಥರಲ್ಲ.
step change. And currently there is a massive monopoly on our banking system. If you look at the names, Mr. Nirav Modi, Mr. Mehul Choksi, Vijay Mallya, Anil Ambani, these names, Mr. Nirav Modi takes 35,000 crores. 35,000 crores. That's the equivalent of 1 year's of Narega money. Takes it, runs away to London, and what does he give back? How many jobs has Mr. Nirav Modi given this country? Almost nothing. So our entire structure, banking structure, is captured and controlled by very, very few limited numbers of people. And I think one has to transform that, one has to change that. One has to make banking capital, of course they have a place, because businesses have a place. But they're not going to be producing the jobs. The jobs are going to be produced by small and medium businesses, by entrepreneurs. That's a fact. If you look at job production, it comes when small and medium businesses become big businesses, and it comes from this type of ecosystem. So opening up the banking system to entrepreneurs, to small and medium businesses aggressively, that's something that is fundamental.
And I think the first part of his question is, what programs do you wish to put forward that would help his community? I think in terms of Dalit entrepreneurship, in terms of those that are socially less well off, and,
I mean, you mean social programs, or you mean specifically
entrepreneurship?
targeted?
He's asking about specifically.
I mean, I think helping them with the banking system, helping them with training systems, helping them setting up hubs in connected areas where they can have easy access, where they can come in, and start their businesses easily, connecting the skills of the country to the financial system, to the governance system. If you want, look, apart from everything else that is going on, you sense a anger in Indian society. You sense a tension in Indian society. And that tension and anger is there because India is failing on jobs. And government doesn't like to say it, but the fact of the matter is this country is dramatically, disastrously failing on jobs. Okay? And we can keep making excuses. We can keep saying that we're a superpower and we're all this. But India is simply not competitive when it comes to making jobs. And this is something that India will have to first accept. And after you accept it, you can do something about it. Right? You look at our entire conversation. It is always about growth. We grew 7%, we grew 6%, we grew whatever we did. But nobody says, this quarter, this is how many jobs were added. Nobody is focusing on the critical metric of jobs. And there is only one group of people who can solve this job problem. And it is small and medium businesses and entrepreneurs. Now the second thing, the second massive disconnect that we don't talk about. There are traditional hubs of skill. And you can see them all over Karnataka, you can see them all over India. You know the names, there's Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh, there's Bengaluru as a tech hub. There are multiple hubs of different skills. And we have an attitude where we don't really value them. We don't think that the skills that are embedded, for example, in Kanpur or in Mirzapur, I'm talking about UP, or in Bangalore, these skills are what is important. So what we do is, we don't link our system to those skills. If you look at the success of the Chinese, and I'm absolutely convinced that our single biggest challenge is to take them on and actually do better than them, and I'm convinced we can do it. What they have done at scale is they have taken their skill networks, their traditional old skill networks, and connected them to their financial network, connected them to their infrastructure. So we have to think in terms of where are the skills, who are the people with skills, and breaking monopolies, and also making sure that we have a single-minded focus, that if we do not start to create the jobs that we need, we're sitting on a disaster the size we cannot even comprehend. So I want to bring a sense of urgency here, because we always like to talk about the successes, and there are many successes, all of you are successful. But country the size of India, the scale of India, simply needs to be producing jobs at a massive scale, and we're failing there.
So they say almost 1 million jobs a month, 10 million a year is the net new jobs India needs to keep up. Question that came up multiple times is about the education system. That skills comes down.
Can I just go back there? We visualize jobs. When we say jobs, we're thinking about formal jobs. Okay? But the nature of India is that there are many informal jobs. And you cannot ignore those informal jobs. And one of the things that I think has tremendously damaged this country is the notion that the current government has that the informal sector is ineffective, useless, needs to be changed. The informal sector is actually the backbone of India. And the informal sector, it really is. And the informal sector needs to be transformed, not with shock therapy, gently, but the informal sector also needs to be protected, in that You can't just one day get up in the evening and say, listen, we're now going to detonate the entire informal sector by getting rid of the 500 and the 1,000 rupee note. You just can't do that. And you've literally wiped out over 1 crore jobs last year because of this type of policies. Newspapers don't write about this. Newspapers have their own reasons for not writing about this. But some of the policies that the government has carried out, demonetization, the way they've implemented GST, have been absolutely disastrous on jobs. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Let me follow up with the education question, because that is something that has come up a lot, because entrepreneurs say, the skills aren't there in the employees we want to hire. The few employees we have, wages are rising like mad because the few that are trained and skilled in especially the new technologies are much in demand, and talent is the thing that's actually the bottleneck for us. It's not even capital in many cases, they're saying. So what is your thinking on how would new age technologies, we will train our youth, those in colleges today, to be industry ready for the new businesses and the new economy of the future?
Connecting the education system to the business ecosystem. Bridging the universities with business. There's no other way to do it. Today our universities, and even the best ones, they're silos. They teach very well, but not connected networks. They are silos. So you can't, for example, access our universities and then have conversations about building businesses. You can't have that type of a conversation. So a modern university, a 21st century university, is a network. It's no longer a concrete silo. And so opening up these universities, making sure that the right type of people are leading these universities, giving these universities independence. Frankly, the current dispensation is placing ideological people at the head of these universities. So there's no way you're going to do that. You're going to fix that problem. But giving license to our university, basically trusting them.
Okay.
Saying, listen, we trust you, get on with it, we're not going to disturb you. Get to work, talk to business people. That is the general approach of the government. The starting position is distrust. I don't trust you. So the first thing you've got to say is, okay, no, actually we're going to trust you, we're going to go ahead and trust you, and make a mistake, then we'll see. So the attitude requires a shift. But opening some of these structures.
Madan Padaki had a question that related to your previous comment about the informal sector. I'm not sure where he is. Madan? Are you here? He's here. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit on your question, please?
Hi, good evening. My name is Madan Padaki. I'm a social entrepreneur. Figuring out the way that you said on how do you create more entrepreneurs in the villages who can go on to create many jobs. I think the jobs crisis that we have is a structural systemic crisis, and it needs to be solved in a very, very fundamental way. And we believe that entrepreneurship and enabling youth to become entrepreneurial and what we call as mass entrepreneurs and creating more jobs is the key. So the question I have for you is I want to visualize a young lady. So I represent the voice of around 10,000 youth across 11 states that we work with. The point is, there's a young lady, 21 years of age, who's completed a graduation in a village in Sindhanur Taluk in Raichur. And she's saying, where are the opportunities for me? How do I go on to dream of the socio-economic status of an entrepreneur? And how do I feel empowered enough to make those choices? What's your thought for that girl out there, and what would you do to empower that young woman to go on to be an entrepreneur?
I mean, first of all, I think there are entrepreneurs all over India. I mean, I go to poor villages in Uttar Pradesh, some brilliant work going on there, right? But the problem is not that the skills don't exist, or the idea that a lot of people have is that, we need to skill people. Skills are there. There's no shortage of skills in India. You might need a fine-tuning that you need to do to the skill to bring him into a corporate situation. But there's no limit to the skills that this country has. We don't actually utilize the skill. We don't actually give access to the skill. I'll give you a small example, right? just off the cuff. We think about vocational training. And we say, listen, we are going to set up a ITI, and now we are going to train, let's say, carpenters. And so you have somebody training a whole bunch of carpenters. That's the current way of thinking about training. Well, there are millions of carpenters in this country. There's a network of carpenters in this country. They know how to do carpentry. Why don't you use them to train carpenters? Why don't you say to them that, listen, you understand how carpenters are trained, go to every carpenter and say, listen, you please train 3 carpenters or 5 carpenters, and then have a system of certification of carpenters. And say every time one of the carpenters you've trained gets certified, we give you 100 rupees in your bank account. You'll train unlimited number of carpenters. Point I'm making is that there are skills networks in this country. Millions of people who absolutely understand what has to be done. But the system doesn't really reach out to them and say, okay, listen, you have this skill now, help us train. Have you ever heard, for example, the government of India saying to carpenters or barbers, listen, we want you to now become an army of trainers? I've never heard it said. So there is a sense in our mind that skill is something that is centralized and that has to be handed out to people. No. There is skill all over this country. It's decentralized. It's operating right now. You have to link. You have to enable that guy. Right? And what is Bangalore? If you look at up over a long period of time, and then that skill connected to the United States and the rest of the world. That's basically what has created modern Bangalore. So what we do with Bangalore, or what we did with Bangalore, is what we have to do with other people, other hubs of skill. There is no reason. I mean, when you look at, for example, a town in China that produces 90% of the locks that are being sold in the world, what they've essentially done is connected a traditional network of skills with money to the rest of the world and built the whole value chain. That's what we can do it easily. But we have to change our mindset to one of growth only. We've got to say, okay, now let's start producing millions and millions of jobs. How do you do that? You can't do it without the skills. So then the next step obviously is find the people, start building those connectivity, those networks, and the thing will fire. We've had successes, huh? For example, Bangalore is a huge success. If you look at what everybody calls the white revolution, Amul, it is basically connecting a large number of women in a district of Gujarat called Anand 70 years ago that produced Anand and created, made India #1 milk producer. So when you reach out to the skills, it happens. But that's not our default position. In India, generally people don't respect skills. The starting position is they respect power, they don't respect skills.
Mr. Gandhi, you mentioned China. China came up many times in many questions. I think the questions were surrounding the comparison to growth in China, and the startup ecosystem there produces a couple of unicorns. Unicorns are companies that are $1 billion in valuation or more every week. In India, we do it approximately now every month. So it's still 5 to 10x us. Now, unicorns not just the only measure, but also there's a lot of innovation that's happening. There's just a lot of opportunity to build hardware. I think the question where the juxtaposition against China comes up the greatest is in the situation with hardware, which is with IoT devices, which are the new devices that'll power the digital fabric. IoT is very important and hardware is very important. We're not yet good at that in India. What do you think your government will do, in terms of hardware policies? Especially startups is very sensitive to that, those that want to build IoT devices.
I mean, I don't think everybody says, China's 10x us, 20x us. I don't believe that. we are fundamentally different in China. And you can't measure India the way you measure China. So I don't believe that China is, miles ahead of us or anything like that. What China has done pretty well is build manufacturing systems on skills and formalizing it. Okay? But India has tremendous capacity, tremendous flexibility that China just does not have. So you can't build a 60,000 man factory in India because of the nature of our democracy and the nature of our ecosystem. But let me tell you, modern manufacturing is flexible manufacturing. Modern manufacturing is going to be small units with a lot of high tech injected in them. That is perfect for India. So it is being open to some of these ideas. Look, when you close your mind, when you have an environment which is angry, when you have an environment where there is tension, anger, viciousness, you don't just close your mind. You close the entire ecosystem. Right? So what is happening today is India's liberal nature, India's open system, India's institutions are being attacked. They are being suppressed. So for us, you have to have an open ecosystem. People have to be ready to talk. People have to be ready to converse. Right? For us, that's the first step. With a bad environment, you're going nowhere. On the specifics, manufacturing, you got to build the basic infrastructure. You got to build roads. You got to build the architecture that allows goods to be moved about. GST in a proper form is a good way forward. So some of those things are happening.
Got it. Okay, so we have a question on women's entrepreneurship from Kajal Upadhyay. Is she here? Kajal? She's right here. Kajal, question.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Kajal. I'm an entrepreneur myself. But my question is very different. It is not about entrepreneurship as such. It is about, I just want to know, why is everybody going around saying Chaukidar chor hai?
I don't know. I mean, look, I'll tell you how I see it. Apparently now the whole country is a chokidar. That's what I last heard. Everybody's become a chokidar. But let me tell you the facts, okay? And I'll go into a little bit of detail because it's important. The Rafale contract is the biggest defense contract in the world. It's the biggest defense contract in the world. It was negotiated by the UPA. 8 years of negotiation. It's a very technical contract. 8 years of negotiation. And a couple of things were decided. 526 crores for one aircraft. The aircraft to be manufactured in India, frankly, in Karnataka, right here, by HAL. And when you say, how do you think about competing in manufacturing? Well, one way you compete in manufacturing is get one of the most high-tech products being created on the planet, put it in Bangalore, and then help or build all the ancillaries around it. That's how you do it, right? It was going to be built by HAL. Now, we changed governments. Mr. Narendra Modi becomes Prime Minister, and you can check this. He goes to France with Mr. Anil Ambani on his delegation. It's a fact, government records, check. The contract is changed. The defense minister turns around and says, I have no idea how this happened. He's at a fish market in Goa. He says, I have no idea how this happened. What we subsequently find is that the 526 crore aircraft has become a 1600 crore aircraft. So 126 aircraft were to be bought. Now 36 aircraft are going to be bought, but we're going to pay the same price. And Mr. Anil Ambani suddenly edges into the contract. Now, we're talking about skill here. Mr. Anil Ambani got the world's biggest defense contract, he's never built an aircraft in his life. Ever. The company that got the contract, we're talking merit here, the company that got the contract was formed 10 days before the contract was given. The French president publicly states that I was in India. I was told by the Prime Minister of India that the only way Dassault is going to get this contract is if Mr. Anil Ambani is given the contract. And oh, by the way, don't charge 526 crores, charge 1600 crores. The President of France says this. And you can check the internet, it's there. We raised the issue, I asked these 4 questions to the Prime Minister in Parliament House. Why did you give Anil Ambani the contract? Why 1600 crores? What is Mr. Anil Ambani's experience? Mr. Prime Minister doesn't answer. 1.5 hours. He looks down, looks up, looks left, looks right, doesn't answer, doesn't look into people's eyes. And it's a fact. Please look at the tape. He's standing there going like this, like this, like this, like this. He's not answering the questions. Okay. The CBI chief turns around and says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to investigate. Remember one thing, the Prime Minister placed that man there. The CBI chief is removed, sacked. The Supreme Court comes in and says, bring him back. He's brought back. He's sacked again. Within a matter of hours. Now, Defense Ministry documents have come in the Hindu newspaper. Take a look at them. There is a series of articles, 3 or 4 articles. It is the negotiating team writing in the documents. And the negotiating team is saying, Mr. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, has carried out a parallel negotiation with Rafael, with Dassault. It's the negotiating team. The negotiating team is saying, the Prime Minister of India has pushed us aside. And the PMO is directly negotiating with the government of France and Dassault. Now, all we said was, let's have an inquiry. Let's have a joint parliamentary committee. Let's check out what happened. And the gentleman who says, I am the chowkidar here, whose name has come in the defense ministry papers, the defense minister said, I don't know anything about this. The CBI chief has been sacked. That gentleman turns around and says, no inquiry, no JPC, nothing. Look, it's a simple thing. Mr. Anil Ambani was given 30,000 crores by Mr. Narendra Modi. It's as simple as that. And the case is open and shut because even those documents that are saying the Prime Minister is running a parallel negotiation, if those documents become part of an inquiry, Mr. Narendra Modi and Mr. Anil Ambani are going to jail. It's as simple as that. Now, my point is, if the Prime Minister wasn't guilty, he would immediately say, absolutely, let's do an inquiry. 100% an inquiry should be done. This is the biggest defense contract. It's Air Force money. I'm the Prime Minister of India. I have done nothing wrong. Have an inquiry. Why is he not having an inquiry? Simple. Now, my friends in the media, these days, they're pressurized, they're controlled. So they don't really like to talk about these things. And I can give you a list of defense contracts that Mr. Anil Ambani and Mr. Modi's friends have been given. One after the other. And they've only got caught on Rafale, which happens to be the biggest contract in the world. So that's why everybody is saying, Chaukidar chor hai. Now look, they attacked the Congress party. They attacked the Congress party on corruption. And we took action on corruption. We sacked people. So, fairness requires that when so blatantly So publicly it is being said that corruption has taken place. If the Prime Minister wasn't guilty, he should have said, listen, I'm investigating this thing. The people who are responsible for this thing are going to jail. That's what he would have done. Why is he not doing that? You want to say something? By the way, another thing. Why does the Prime Minister not have conversations like this? Yeah, say. I'm happy to answer whatever you want. Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Rahul. My name is Aditya, and in reference to the explanation that you gave, I want to tell you that the common Indian is stuck in a situation where the mainstream political parties who rule once and then switch parties, one party is accused of one scam and the other is accused
That's
of
true.
many more.
That's absolutely true.
So-
and yeah, go ahead.
So at the end of the day, these are acquisitions. The opposition and other members unitedly took the Rafael deal to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said no.
No,
we
that's
don't need
not
an
what happened.
investigation. It's been
No.
reopened.
No. That's not what happened. One second. Let's be clear about what happened. The Supreme Court said it is not our jurisdiction to decide on these matters. It is the jurisdiction of the political class. The Supreme Court said do a JPC. Right? That's not what happened. So it is absolutely wrong to say that the Supreme Court said there should be no inquiry. It did not say that. One second. After that, documents were handed to the Supreme Court through the Hindu, which clearly state, Defense Ministry documents, that Mr. Narendra Modi, yeah, we'll come to you. Let him be. That Mr. Narendra Modi personally negotiated the Dassault contract. That's criminal. By any measure that is criminal, he should go to jail for that. It's simple. There's no confusion there. It's black and white, open and shut.
What I
Mr.
was
Gandhi, if
about-
I may impose the prerogative of the moderator to get the topic back on entrepreneurship, that would be great, because we've got a few other
I'm
questions.
sorry I went long on that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I can see in the political environment, it's a passionate thing, but I would like a few of our entrepreneurs. Anvita is there. If she could ask a question about women's entrepreneurship and rural entrepreneurship. Anvita, are you here? And then I'll get a few more questions in. We'll try and keep these quick, please, because we're running short on time.
Mine's more about rural entrepreneurship. The question is, what kind of policy interventions do you think would help better align rural entrepreneurs with the urban consumer, urban demand, and kind of help bridge the gap between rural and the urban sector?
I mean, I think just making an entrepreneur is an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is somebody who's trying to utilize his skills to build a business. I think that, in India today, people are moving rural, urban, and these systems are very connected. So I think looking at it purely and saying this is a rural entrepreneur, this is an urban entrepreneur is in itself a slight problem. But if you're looking at the rural area, then connecting the rural area to the city, transforming how our railway network works, allowing rural people to move fast across India, making sure that, again, the type of skills that they require, the type of information that they need, what I spoke about, giving them training, introducing them to people who have built businesses like yourselves, bringing them into a conversation with the ecosystem, that type of stuff would help. And then, of course, in government contracts and in other spaces, helping them a little bit, saying, look, you're sort of struggling against all odds, so we will create little spaces for you to sell your products, etc. But giving them a little bit of a helping hand.
Thank you. I'm going to ask rapid fire questions of some of the folks because we're running out of time. Akshay Shah had a question on e-commerce policy. I'm sorry, we're not taking questions randomly. I'm sorry. We've got a lot of questions that were submitted earlier, and we'd like to go to them. Akshay, are you here? I see your hand up there. Can you get him a mic? There was a new e-commerce policy that has been promulgated. It's in draft form now, and you had a question, Akshay?
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Rahulji. Pleasure to have you in Bangalore. So I wanted to ask your perspective on the new e-commerce policy that essentially imposed a lot of restrictions on the big e-commerce platforms, from selling their own product, doing private labels, providing discounts to end consumers, which were very beneficial, and also putting constraints on sellers like us to be able to sell on the platform. So wanted to see if the Congress government came to power, would they continue with that policy? Would they change it? What would they do?
I haven't gone into the details of it. I haven't really gone into the details of it. I'll have to go into the details of it before I comment. But I have been given a little bit of a briefing on it. I think there are issues with warehousing in the policy that I've been told about. And there's a balance that has to be created between the really large players and the smaller players. I don't know how that policy creates the balance, but I think we would think about it in terms of being fair to all the stakeholders. I don't think we would, go one way or the other way.
Thank you.
There's one question from Meena Ganesh. Meena is a very accomplished entrepreneur who's built businesses of scale in the past, but also now is building a healthcare business. Meena?
Thank you, Rahulji. We spoke a little earlier.
Yes.
My big concern is for the elderly population in this country. As I was saying, that I don't see any thought through 360-degree method of providing them with the various things. One is healthcare, to mental well-being, community support, some kind of livelihood, so that they can remain, because they're going to live much longer than ever did, and that's great. They're going to be having chronic diseases, not so great, but that's the reality. And we are sitting on a big ticking population.
I mean, in our manifesto, we are thinking about a right to health. So providing basic minimum health care to the entire population, that's something that would be helpful. Increasing the amount that we spend on healthcare of our budget. I think we're also thinking about a minimum income guarantee scheme that guarantees that nobody in India will have an income below a certain floor. So that, of course, for the poorer older people, that will be a help. But I think right to health care would be a powerful thing to help older people who are having health problems. We would be building large numbers of hospitals, PHCs, etc., and then giving access to those structures.
Great. We've run out of time, but I have a couple of personal questions for you. One is, had you not been born into the circumstances you're in, might you have been an entrepreneur? Would you have done a startup?
We are all in our own ways entrepreneurs. I mean, that's what everybody's doing. I think I don't run a business, and I don't think about it like a business. But even in politics, we have to keep thinking on our feet, being pretty flexible and fast moving. So in some ways we are, No, and not engineering.
You could have been a software engineer.
Not engineering for me, no. Yeah. No, not good looking enough. Writer I can still be. I mean, I do write a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. And then, one last personal question that came in on the wire. A couple of people asked, what is a day like in your life? Do you, I know it's the political season now, but, what is a normal day like? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Work day?
Yeah.
Meeting.
Or what you do for fun or whatever is the
meeting
question.
A lot of people, listening to them. I get to see some very interesting things. And I go to places where a lot of people don't have the opportunity to go. For example, I meet people who a lot of people don't meet. Like just a few days ago, I was in Uttarakhand and I met some of the CRPF, the families of the CRPF members who died. And it's quite an emotional experience because you come into contact with somebody who's in tremendous pain. And so you can see how they're reacting to things. You sometimes have to comfort them. So you see sort of very deeply into issues. You naturally end up in places where you're like, oh look, I'm talking to the brother of the person who just gave his life, and he's telling me that my brother is never going to come through the door again. So empathizing with people, in a sense, I've had that same experience. So in that case, I could say, look, I've been through the same thing. So it's a lot of those type of conversations, and a lot of time people are coming with huge amount of expectation. We want you to do this, and then there are multiple people coming. So it becomes more and more listening. And with me, what it's doing is it's humbling. So you start to realize how small you actually are, and how big the universe and the world is, and how your impact, even though you might think your impact is big, your impact is actually quite small when it comes to the big forces that are at play. So it's a very humbling experience. I see it as a journey. So I see it as, okay, I'm on a journey, and I try to learn from the journey. And that's how I view my life.
Taking that journey theme a little forward, my last question for you is, as you look at the startup ecosystem, India, I'm sorry, if I could just, we have no more time. We have no more time right now. I'm sorry, we have no more time now. We have a limited amount of time. Question is about where you see, as we close here, if you could make a few closing comments that summarize your thoughts, the startup ecosystem.
We'll come.
I'm sorry. Very bad.
Yeah. Just 1 second. We'll do it. Everybody has issues. Huh?
No, I'm sorry, because
doesn't matter.
I was given a time check.
No problem. Now, what would you like to say? I'll take a question here.
I understand. Everybody's keen to talk. I know. We have hundreds of questions. We picked as many as we could. That was a varied set of questions that represented all kinds of folks. Okay, across the world.
Ask.
Okay, he's going to.
Yeah, I know your organization. Please go. Here, you can have this.
See, our organization motto or the slogan is, we are job givers. We are not job seekers. Number one. See, now your coalition government is governing this state. They are giving only the rosy picture of doing ease of business. I want to give a scheduled caste problem.
Tell me.
There is one organization called KSFC, Karnataka Finance Corporation Limited. See, on last year...
Can you do me a favor?
Please.
This is a sort of specific question. If you come and talk to me once we're done, I'll happily talk to you for 5 minutes and understand what you're trying to say.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you, Mr. Gandhi. That was most gracious of you and got me off the hook.
No.
I would like you to
My job here is to do that. My job here is to listen.
Very good.
Look, I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. First of all, it's fine. Now, first of all, I want to thank you for what you're doing for the country. Each one of you, in your own way, are working very, very hard and trying to make this country successful. So I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing. I understand that you struggle. I understand that you face an uphill battle. And my doors are open for you in any way I can help you. I don't promise you that I'll resolve everything that you bring to me, but my intention will be there to try and help you. I think as far as India is concerned, we're on a very positive track. There are very, very powerful things that this country has. Its people, its nature, the way we deal with each other, our technical capabilities. So I'm pretty optimistic. The only thing I would like to say is that a country which is divided, a country which is angry, a country which is fighting within itself is not going to be successful. So you have to do your little bit so that this country calms down, doesn't sort of have this sort of very angry feeling to it, and we get back, happily where we were, and we move on. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Gandhi.
I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. First of all, it's fine. Now, first of all, I want to thank an uphill battle, and my doors are open for you in any way I can help you. I don't promise you that I'll resolve everything, that you bring to me, but my intention will be there to try and help you. I think as far as India is concerned, we're on a very positive track. There are very, very powerful things that this country has. It's nature, the way we deal with each other, our technical capabilities. So I'm pretty optimistic. The only thing I would like to say is that a country which is divided, a country which is angry, a country which is fighting within itself is not going to be successful. So you have to do your little bit so that this country calms down, doesn't sort of have this sort of very angry feeling to it, and we get back, happily where we were, and we move on. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Gandhi.
I'll message you in 20 minutes. Photo, video, English record ಮಾಡ್ರಿ, English record ಮಾಡ್ರಿ. Follow ಮಾಡಿ, ರಾಮನಗರ ಸರ್ ತೋರ್ಸು. Just take it.
Of all the selfies and all, take video of people running. ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ತೋಳಿ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಬೇಕು ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ರಂಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. ಏನು ಸಿಗ್ತದೆ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ. ಕಾರ್ಡ್